kick it off to Laura to share a little bit more about ECMC.
Thank you, Justin. I am Laura Thielander-Graf. I am the Senior Director of Public Relations and Thought Leadership at ECMC Group. Thank you so much for being here. And, this is a really exciting time for us, and we really wanted to bring forward some student voices here. ECMC Group, for the past 30 years, has focused on helping students succeed. And we do that in a variety of ways, but all of it is focused on helping them access, persist, and complete their post-secondary education, whatever that may be, and then find the path that's right for them, right? And so, since before COVID until now, we have been talking to students, right? Something that hasn't really been done very much. I think a lot of times the adults in the room kind of determine, you know what, this is what we think this next generation should do with their post-secondary education. But we thought it was really important, yes? See, they think that this is good too. So we thought it was really important to speak to teens, right? To find out what they want, what their concerns are, what their post-secondary path should be. So as I say, we've been conducting surveys since pre-COVID to now. We launched the Question the Quo campaign really to empower Gen Z teens and students of all ages to take the education and career path that's right for them. And so we've got this data, but we really wanted to put some voices on a stage here at South by. We thought that this was a great place to showcase some students that are at various levels in their education path so that you all can hear. We've got some local high schoolers here that are with us as well. And so really want this to be an interactive discussion and one that we can really share, what their concerns are, what their insights are too, and hopefully we can take this back to our day-to-day and make it a little better for the future.
So we'll do quick intros. I'll start from my farthest left, who is Tania. And so Tania is a student at Lone Star, and I know the Lone Star squad is over here. Shout out to Lone Star. And so she's here, she's coming from kind of the community college 2-year perspective as she's going to get her degree and then aiming to go right into the workforce. So not necessarily jumping to another 4-year school, just going straight after getting that associate's degree. And then next we have Alessandra, who has a very interesting story. If you've ever been on Food Talk, you may have seen her content on there. So she has went to school to study business administration at Fordham University. And then from there, did what every college student wants, which is find a job. But ultimately, she decided that wasn't really where her passions lie. So she's back in culinary school now and making a lot of content online, kind of documenting that journey through her schooling, becoming the next best pastry chef, whatever it may be. She makes some delicious stuff on her TikTok. And then to the closest to me is my cousin Jaden Wynn. I'll call him JJ, so if you hear JJ, that's why. But I'm super excited to share the stage with my younger cousin. He's a high school student in Houston, and I'm super excited to hear some of the questions or some of the answers that he has for some of the questions that we're going to be sharing. So yeah, I think it's good to start off with the first question now. We're just going to jump right into it, to be honest. The campaign is called Question the Quo, right? And the quo being sort of the traditional path, so to say, and we want to question that. For each and every one of you, and we'll start with Tania first, what do you feel when you think of the traditional path? What does that mean for you when it comes to education?
When I think of the traditional path, I think of a 4-year institution instantly, yes.
And can you dive a little deeper into that? When you say 4-year, like why do you feel that that's the first thing that comes to your mind?
I feel it's the first thing that comes to my mind because it's the only thing I heard as a senior in 2021 was what college are you going to, what major are you majoring in, and that same question smacking me back to back to back.
For sure.
Yeah.
Alessandra?
Yeah, bouncing off that, I would think the same thing. I think you grow up watching TV and movies and consuming media, seeing people being driven off to college and moving into the college dorm and glorifying that experience. In high school, you're asked by your counselors and your teachers and your family and your friends, where are you going to go to college? What do you want to be? What do you want to do? And I think that that's what everyone has as their vision of, post-secondary education. It's that you're going to go to college, you're going to go to a 4-year institution, and you're going to get the great job after that and be set up for success right from there.
For sure. And JJ?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was more my family, telling me that I need to go to college, maybe be a doctor, be a lawyer, something that makes a lot of money. Yeah, and then yeah, I mean counselors they pull us aside and like let us know the process and some things that we need to know and tell us that we should be going to college, and a lot of our teachers enforce that as well. It's kind of just constantly being put in our face.
For sure. And so I know, Laura, there is that stat in terms of pressure when it comes to a four-year degree post-secondary or post-high school. When it comes to, and you can dive into the stats after we hear their answers, when it comes to the pressures that you felt, did you feel pressure going or wanting or having to go to that four-year degree post-high school? And can you talk us through sort of where those pressures are coming from, whether it's that society, is that movies, is that family members? I think we kind of heard a little bit of each of that from each and one of you, but dive deeper into that.
I really appreciate you for like bringing up media, because I feel like that makes such a big difference, especially like in this generation. People have a hard time making choices just based off of like their own choices. I can speak for myself. Like I used to take the ACTs, SATs, and I never felt I had a true purpose of taking it. Like I was just like, why am I doing this? Is this even for me? How do I know it's for me? It's just everyone in society telling me that this is the next path that you have to take. This is your next journey. But yeah, it's just a lot of pressure from society, from my perspective.
For sure.
I think for me, a lot of it is like seeing your peers. So I'm really fortunate that I feel like I have a very supportive like family that allowed me to pursue what it is that I wanted to. But it's like you look to your friends and they're all going to college. And so it kind of, you know, you're like drinking the Kool-Aid. You're like, okay, if everyone's going to college, I have to go to college. And I was recently talking to one of my friends from college whose younger brother is now, you know, at that stage where he's deciding what his post-secondary education is. And he's not a very academic student. And as much as like he would probably best align with a trade school or some other alternative form of post-secondary education, he wants to go for the social aspect. Now, okay, if you find a program that works and is affordable just to go to socialize, I mean, that's one way to look at it, but I think you can just find your own path and maybe hang out with your friends on the weekend. But I think that that is a real, you know, pain point, is that social aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of like drinking the Kool-Aid and doing things that your friends are doing and wanting to follow that same path together.
I'm going to try to talk loudly because we're trying to share a mic. So we found that 85% of high school teens feel pressure to go the four-year path. So would you say that you felt pressure to go four-year initially?
I think initially, yeah. I think it wasn't even necessarily that much of a question. I think it was like, just like, oh, that's the logical, that's what you're going to do. I mean, I think for me, specifically, because I had a pass in food in the culinary field from a young age, one of the questions I was getting was, oh, are you going to go to culinary school? And so I thought about that, but I was a very academic student at the time and wanted to continue on that path. So it was a mix of like definitely just kind of like the expectation. Like it wasn't like, are you going to college or not? It's like, are you going to culinary school or are you going to a traditional college? Like that was more of the question.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. And JJ, you're in high school right now. You're a senior. What is kind of going through your head when it comes to when people are asking you, what college are you going to? Have you applied to schools? Things of that nature. How does that feel from your perspective?
I mean, yeah, it just feels like everybody is assuming that I'm going to college. So like, it's not necessarily an expectation. It's just like it's going to happen. It's not like, oh, are you going to college? It's what college are you going to? It's not much of a choice. But I mean, realistically, I never really felt that pressured to go to college all that much. I mean, you know, my parents, you know, naturally like, oh, you got to go to college, get a four-year degree, do whatever. But I didn't feel too pressured. I just kind of went along with it.
And I'll dive a little bit deeper into that in the way of, you may not have necessarily felt the pressure to want to go to a four-year degree, but like you said, everyone is coming up to you, and I'm sure it might have been very similar for you guys as well. I want to ask Tania this, because you're going the community college route. What was that like, telling people that you're going to a community college versus a UT or a U of H or whatever it may have been?
So for me, I'm a person where I really I'm kind of a leader. So if someone else is going this way, instantly I'm gonna go this way if it's calling me and if it's for me. So community college was honestly my first choice because I never just saw myself sitting in UT or just saw myself sitting at A&M. Like, I saw myself pursuing a further education. I didn't know what it looked like for me, so I felt community college was the best place to start.
And what do you feel could be done to lessen that quote unquote bad stereotype around going to a community college? Because I remember when I was in high school and people were like, oh, I'm going to community college, the kind of stereotype that was given from that was like, oh, this person's not smart enough to get into a UConn because I'm from Connecticut or whatever it may be. But now that I'm past college, community college honestly might be one of the smarter decisions depending on kind of your path and your financial situation or whatever it may be. But what do you think could be done to lessen that stereotype, if anything?
Ooh, that's a good question. Because, like, once again, like you said, everyone's always expecting you to go to a 4-year, and then when you go to a 4-year, they're expecting this lawyer degree, or they're expecting you to be a doctor, or they're expecting, like, an MBA, like something just extraordinary, outlandish, and flashy. For me, I feel the stigma comes from the lack of awareness. A lot of people aren't aware of what a community college actually offers. So I feel like it's a lack of awareness.
Talk us through a little bit of that.
Of course. So for me, I feel it offers flexibility, a lot of flexibility. There's always classes available. The class ratios, it's way interactive, way more interactive. What else? It's a way more relaxed environment than what I would feel like a 4-year institution would be.
So one thing, in our latest survey, we found that only 8% of low-income BIPOC and first-gen students feel prepared to make the decision about what to do after high school. Did you feel that you had the information? I mean, it sounds like now that you're in it, you can really talk about it, but did you have the information that you felt that you needed to make that choice, an educated choice?
So since middle school, I've actually been taking college readiness classes since 8th grade, and honestly, I don't feel like I've ever been prepared to make this choice until I got here. Like, there's no way to truly prepare yourself for going to college until you go to college.
Yeah.
And you learn with, like, the language, you learn the community, you learn the school itself, what it can offer. It's really what fits best for you, because what might not fit best for you could be great for someone else. What's not great for you could be great for someone else, you know? So.
Jaden, do you feel prepared to decide?
No.
You're in it. You are.
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah, no, okay. And what makes you nervous about that? Or does it make you nervous? Maybe it doesn't make you nervous. I shouldn't make that assumption.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like super nervous, but like it's also, I feel like if I were to pick a path, like I need to stay on that path. I think knowing that there is flexibility, that I can choose a different path is good for me. I feel like some don't know that. And I've been, you know, my parents have raised me knowing that it's not just one path. Like I can start on one and then I can move to another. There's a fork in the road. It's not just one straight line.
Could I add on?
Yes.
Like, literally what you said about starting at one path and then moving to another is kind of what I'm doing at a community college. Like, a community college is not the end-all, be-all. You can always pursue a further education, or you could pursue a further education or go straight into the workforce.
Yeah.
So I think that was a great, like, add-on. Sorry.
Yeah. And we've also found from our data is that students, you know, they expect to be lifelong learners, right? Just because the way that society is changing. And so it's no longer seen as a one and done. I think for older generations, it was kind of like you got your 4-year, and then you just kind of went into the working world, right? But I think that your generation realizes that you're going to need to reinvent yourself on a regular basis, right? And so that's where I think some of the desire to go shorter, right, more direct to employment for a while, you know, get some education, test it out, get some more education, test it out. Kind of, I mean, that seems to be kind of the model that Gen Z teens are talking about. Do you agree with that?
100%.
Yeah.
I think that even it's like we see it more in society. Like we learn this in school, you know, back in the older days, like when you graduated from college, you joined a job and you stayed at that job. You didn't really move around as much. They saw you as like a job hopper. It was like looked down upon if you jump from company to company. Whereas nowadays, it's encouraged. That's how you get a pay raise. That's how you shift in the different power roles within a company. You go from one place to another, and maybe you get the company to pay for you to go back to school and get that next degree, whether it's in the medical field and you're a nurse and you want to become a nurse practitioner, or you're a business student and they want to pay for you to get your MBA. I think that it is good to like get a little bit of education and test it out. And also really quick to jump on the community college thing, I just wanted to add, I think it is such an amazing opportunity and like path that someone could take when you don't know exactly what you want to do. You know, you don't want to start paying so much money at a university or a college and then, you know, you've taken all these classes that maybe can't transfer credits. And I mean, I never think that time is wasted, but I think that it's an excellent path while you're still navigating what you want to do in your next steps.
100%. It is way less time consuming going to a community college. I do feel that.
And it opens you up to whatever you want to do afterwards. I think I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So right now I'm taking computer programming and I'm also taking another basic course in data analytics, which, thank you for asking that. So at community college, you get right into the courses that you want to get into. So you learn your skills, you learn how to interact with people that are already in this job space. So that's another thing I really feel like a community college offers that a four-year institute doesn't. Because if you're going to a four-year, you have to look and see you're going to be taking basics for 2 years. Within those 2 years, kind of like you said, like you're not necessarily wasting time, but you are putting a lot of your time and your energy into something that you can't use right now. So.
Do you pick, can I ask you one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you pick, so when you go to the community college, because I'm not even sure about this myself, do you pick like an area of focus or an area of concentration? Like you said, you're taking these data analytic classes. Like, did you pick to take those classes, or how does that work? Like,
So I actually kind of jumped around a little bit. So at first I started in business, and then I was in stenography, and then I went to data analytics because my goal is to be a computer science and be in web development. And what kind of led me to this point was, what am I trying to get at? Even if you're completing like basic general courses at a community college, everything you work towards will be you working towards something. Like you're never just putting in effort and you're just putting in your time into these courses and then that's just it. Like, can you ask your question again so I can kind of get back?
just like when you started at community college, did you have to pick like you know, in college you pick a major? And, I mean, obviously there's undecided, that is a major. That's honestly the most common major, I think, amongst freshmen in college. But did you have to pick an area of focus for the community college? Like when you applied or when you started there, or was it more of like a general?
It's more of like, honestly, 100%, please talk to your advisors. If you're going to college, please talk to your advisors if you don't understand anything. But your advisors are great. They'll kind of get you on a path where you're taking a little bit of everything. So once again, you're not really wasting your time. You can be in a general business degree and you're still pursuing classes pertaining to business and like core requisites. You know?
For sure.
Sorry, I hope I answered that.
No, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, again, I was very unfamiliar with the community college route as well, so you just don't know what you don't know. Let's change the conversation a little bit. And again, if anyone does have a question, feel free to go up.
There's a question.
Yeah, go ahead. There's a mic right there. Feel free to just walk up to the mic and like make eye contact with me, and then we can ask a
Hi.
question.
Oh, is this on? Okay. Hi, Casey Jo Brown from LPL Financial, University Recruiting. Come from a long line of working with colleges and students. First gen myself, and going through that process, I felt like I didn't have the correct resources. And so now helping my sister, who's in JJ's position, go through college, some of the colleges she was looking at are mandating or strongly encouraging their students to not come in with a major and it's just exploratory. And then from there, choosing, declaring, applying to the major. Do you think that, if that hypothetically were to happen across the board, do you think that would be enticing to Gen Z and the whole pressure of college, choosing a major, making sure that, you know, you're making enough money, et cetera?
I feel like that's not really like, I feel like that would give students more of the pressure of, it also takes into account like how much those classes cost. How much is it to explore? how much is exploring costing you? Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that is a great infrastructure, but I think that also, I think it's good having that in addition with having an opportunity for those students that know exactly what they want to do. So I was having a conversation earlier with Alex from the Question the Quote team, and she was telling me how when she went to college, she knew exactly what she wanted to do. And so she was sitting there taking chemistry classes when she wanted to be a communications major. And so she felt as if that was a little bit wasting her time. And I think that that's a great opportunity for students who don't know. And, I gave tours on my college campus and got all the stats. And the biggest major, like the largest major of freshmen, is undecided. So I think there are definitely a large group of people that would benefit from that. But I think that also looking into different opportunities that allow students who happen to know exactly what they want to do when they start college, having them kind of find an accelerated way to get those classes done is something interesting too. But I think that's great too. I've never heard of that kind of program, and I think that's nice that they're encouraging it, because I think a lot of students feel pressure to pick a major, although they know that they can jump around. Like JJ is probably saying that he knows he can jump around, because that's the most important thing. I've seen so many friends of mine jump within their majors within college, and then even after graduating college, going into fields that they didn't study and still being able to get jobs in it.
JJ?
I don't have anything to say, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not even a part of the process yet.
Fair. I think my perspective on that in terms of going to college with no real major, so to say, or not having to choose a major, is I think in theory it makes a lot of sense for us looking back, but I think the real question is how does it get executed on from a course standpoint and a guidance standpoint, right? Because if you just throw a student into college regardless, they're going to end up in the same path, whether they have a business major or an undecided major. It's more of, are you teaching that student the skills to understand how to actually navigate college versus do we declare a major or whatever it may be? So that would be my perspective on that.
Justin and Alessandra, I know you both were on the four-year path and then made a complete U-turn and went in very different directions from your formal educational path. I'm curious about what your internal conversation was that allowed you to maybe convince yourself that it was a good idea to go in a totally different direction, and then what your external conversations were like with parents, with friends, with other people that allowed you to have confidence in your decision.
Absolutely. I think that for me, there was a certain point where, I was in high school and I knew at that point when I was a senior, I was going to college. So it's like, okay, great. You do everything you have to do because college is your next step. You know that you're going to end up at a college. But now the difference is when I was in college, it's like my school was a very competitive business school where students had full-time offers and internships lined up by their sophomore, junior year of college. So now you have this pressure, should I be getting this internship that's going to turn into a six-figure full-time job because I have the degree that enables me to do that? And so, sure, it sounds alluring, you want to be able to, make the most out of that, investment of time and money in your education. But then I thought to myself, what's the goal out of college? There's not that next step. You're not going to this, kind of like understated understanding of like, okay, we're all going into this next same box. Everyone's going on their own path. And so I think it took a while for me to internally accept that. But once I did, I kind of felt like such a weight off of my shoulders. And I thought to myself, okay, I can't compare myself. What I want to do with my life is very different from what my peers and friends next to me are doing. And so once I accepted that for myself, I think it opened up the opportunities and showed me that the sky's the limit, and that in order to get to where I want to go, I could take any path, and it didn't need to be what all my other friends were doing. And as far as like having that public conversation, with my parents and my friends, I feel really fortunate that my friends and family were very supportive. I mean, definitely some people were a little bit skeptical, and that's where it kind of led for me, not necessarily jumping right into my trade school out of school, but getting that job first, because I was like, okay, if I get the job first, people will know I tried. I put that effort into, getting that full-time job and seeing what it was like. But in retrospect, again, I don't regret doing that. I think I learned things from that job that pushed me to my next step. But if I could have gone back, maybe I would have just started this program right away and not kind of doubted myself there and thinking that, you know, what is everyone else going to say if I just go right into this next thing without at least giving it a go?
Yeah, I think my perspective was very similar, I would say. My parents thought I was supposed to be the doctor of the family. That didn't happen, clearly. So I was supposed to be going down the doctor route, and then I changed to business route, which I ultimately graduated with a finance degree. But all the work that I do now is mainly in marketing. So Declassified is a media company, but is a fancy way of saying we make TikToks, basically. That help college kids understand the college to career lifestyle. And so for me, the external conversation was like, hey guys, I'm starting a business. And people were like, you're starting a business? How are you going to make money? Right? Because I had the internships at Fortune 500 companies. I did what I needed to do to kind of please my parents, so to say. But it was always like, Justin, how are you going to make money? How are you going to survive? How does this actually work out? And when I had those conversations with them, it was just like, Justin has 200% confidence that this is going to work. But on the inside, it was like, bro, are you ever going to actually make some money? Because for the first couple of years, I was still working at Universal at the time and like as a cashier. So I'd be on LinkedIn talking like, oh yeah, like doing the speaking thing, which was for free at the time, doing the speaking thing, making these TikToks, getting all these views, making zero money, and then going and paying bills by doing a cashier job at Universal Studios, right? So it was a little bit of chip on my shoulder. I need to kind of make sure that this works, and just having a good support system. Because like, yes, did my parents make fun of me? Did my family make fun of me? Of like, bro, what are you doing out here making TikToks, right? For sure. But at the same time, like they were always supportive, especially my girlfriend Michelle, who's here. Like, all right, I trust you, I believe in you. It might not work right now, but it's going to work eventually. And I think having at least just one or two people that are really strong in your corner can really push you to keep going when again, Universal cashier pays, but not enough to really pay rent, especially right now. So it's kind of a balance between like unrealistic expectations of yourself, but having some people that believe in that unrealistic expectations of yourself as well.
Hey y'all. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm a little too short for this mic. Okay, cool. First of all, love to see the Houston representation up here. I'm from Spring, so hello.
Hi.
But
There we go.
So I work for an org that like right now we're researching how to change the way that we pay for school, like pay for college or grad school or trade school or whatever, because I think we all know we don't want student loans. It's such a huge decision or like influence on our decision of where we go to college or like if we go to college beyond all these perfectly like totally valid reasons y'all are presenting, you don't have to go. But I was wondering just like if y'all could share if the way that you were planning to pay for education, like if that impacted your decisions, or if you even knew how to pay for education, because I did not. I was like just going into college and I'm like, yeah, this will work out. Probably should have had more info on that. But yeah, just curious what y'all's thoughts were about how money impacts it all, because I know it's a lot.
So actually, before we answer your question, I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Oh, my name is Megan.
Megan?
Yeah.
Because I think this actually puts it into perspective before answering your question, Megan, is can you each say what you think a student loan is?
Okay.
Can you define it in your own words? And I'll start with JJ first because he's in high school. And I know I'm just throwing you on the spot right now, but in your mind, what does a student loan mean?
I don't know, just like debt. Kind of it.
Okay, that's fair. That's a good answer. Alessandra?
It's basically taking a loan from the bank and signing a very long kind of like relationship with the bank that's constantly bugging you for money as you continue, and as you're trying to make money, they're taking money from you. So it's like kind of like a goose chase.
Okay.
I 100% agree. It's a loan that has a lot of interest. It's
Okay.
something that you will see for a while, especially depending on where you go and what your major is.
Okay. So the reason I wanted to ask that question is because, right, I think a lot of students, especially when you're in high school, you have no idea what a student loan is. You hear this all the time. You hear debt, but you've got no real understanding of what $10,000 is, $50,000 is, $100,000 is, right? Let alone interest. I know a lot of people who are like 30, 40, 50, 60 years old that have no understanding of interest, right? And compound interest and everything of that nature. So how can you expect a 17, 18-year-old to make that decision, right? So I wanted to ask that question to put this into perspective a little bit. But to Megan's question, when it comes to that financial decision of college, how did that play in each of your roles when you're thinking about that next step? We can start with JJ first.
Yeah, you know, I come from a fairly fortunate family, so they always just told me, like, money wasn't the issue, like, do whatever I want. So it didn't really play much of a factor for my decision.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I think it's definitely something that's a factor of your decision making when it comes to college. You know, it's a trade-off. Are you going to put in that investment to go to that college because you get the prestige, you get the name, you're getting the opportunities afterwards, or can you find a way to get all of that information and those opportunities by taking a different alternative path that will not leave you with so much debt? You know, are you going to try for scholarships? I think there's like a lot of different pressures, but I think that financially, like, it is an important decision and an important factor in how you make your decisions. Are you going to apply to schools that have higher scholarship like rates and where you think that you could get an opportunity for that, or you know, are you just looking to get the highest name or the highest prestige because you think that the payout afterward will be there? So I definitely think that is something that is definitely prevalent on most college students' minds.
Okay, so for me, what made me kind of make my decision, it was the curriculum. It was more of what skills can I learn now, what education can I get now, and I'm willing to pay for it. I'm willing to pay the price if I feel fulfilled enough and I feel like I meet that expectation of myself. So I guess that's what kind of influenced my decision.
Yeah, I think from my standpoint, again, thankfully my parents were able to help me pay through college. But the way that I looked at it was, so I was from Connecticut my first year. And so when I was choosing a school in Florida, I had to choose between a private school, University of Tampa, or a public school, UCF. But I knew that I couldn't get in-state until my second year because I had to be living there for a year. So it's like, okay, let me try out UTampa first year and then see if this is worth an extra 25 grand. And what I found out for me, for at least for that school, it wasn't worth the extra 25 grand, so I ended up transferring to the public school and getting the in-state tuition. But yeah, I think finances is super important. But let's be honest, when we're in high school, we could care less. It's like, okay, how can I buy the next pair of Jordans? How can I buy my prom dress or whatever it may be, right? It's less about how much does 20 grand turn into after 10% interest rates for 20 years. No idea. So we got one question, then we can go to you after. So we got one at the mic.
Yep.
And then we'll come.
Hi, my name is Paris Gamble, and so my question for you is, how much debt is too much debt? Everybody is talking about debt as if you can go through this world and not have any debt whatsoever. So my question is, you've got debt associated with cars, homes, everything else. So I would like to hear from each one of you, what do you feel is too much debt? Give me a number. What do you think is too much to have? Thank you.
For me, I feel like too much debt is 10,000. Like anything more, 10,000 or more.
I agree. I feel like I get anxious. Even with my like credit card statements, I'm like the day they send it, I'm like I'm sending it in right away as long as I can, because it just makes me anxious, the idea of having like a compounded interest and having debt accrues. I'm also going to go. I'll raise it a little bit. I think I would be willing to take no more than 20,000.
JJ?
I mean, I don't really have a metric. You know, I haven't had to worry about finances at any point in my life, to be completely
What
Perfect
number
example.
what number scares you? If you heard that you owed this amount of money, what number scares you?
I mean, I feel like to me any number that's negative, any number in debt is scary.
But that's fair. That's
That is
valid.
fair, yeah.
Right? For me, I think if I were to get a college degree, I think the most that I would go into debt, again, looking back, is probably 10 to 20 grand. I think that I could probably escape out of and feel comfortable enough. But I do have friends that have 100K in debt, and I look at their interest rates and what they have to pay on a monthly basis, and I'm like, dang, bro, that's rent that I have to pay, let alone you have to pay rent on top of what you have to pay on a monthly basis, right? So I totally agree. I know it's a hard question because it's hard to, again, understand some of these big numbers. So it's cool to get that perspective because you don't think that you have to deal with it until you're starting to get that monthly check that Fannie Mae or whoever is sending to you, saying like, hey, give me that money back.
And you can't go out and hang out with your friends because of that.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Make that decision.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I agree.
Jasmine?
I'm just saying, from the perspective I've seen, like my perspective and my peers' perspective, the amount of debt is like actually very important. At least maybe it's just the people I've surrounded myself with, but it's the number I see for I get from school would determine which school I would go to, and if I don't get enough, I will be going to community college. And I know what number scares me.
Yeah. Like what number you saw, like, okay, I think that's fair, versus what number you saw, like,
I see my in-state tuition for all these other schools. I'm like 40K for all 40K. Like I feel like also I was set on the path to try to get the scholarship, so any money scares me because of the way compound interest works. And I feel like that also really affects how my friends see things because a lot of people have been turned down schools just because they don't have the adequate amount of funds.
Have you made your decision where you're going to go?
No, I'm waiting for all my decisions to come through and to make a decision. Yeah.
I definitely agree with that one. I got into USC, and I also got into a school in Hawaii, and I'm looking at the financial aid packages right now, and it's like USC's a beautiful campus, amazing school, incredible school. $60,000 for out-of-state tuition. I'm like, I don't have the money for that. And then I look at UT, and that's a great school I got into as well. And it's it looks way more affordable, which is why I'm realistically, I know I'm gonna probably go to UT because I can afford that. In the essence of I would love to go to USC, but I just can't afford that in that way.
Yeah, adding on to their point of view also, every time I get these financial aid package letters in the mail, there's always 4 or 5 different type of loans that they offer me. And I was wondering how that, for y'all at least, because I know JJ can't really input on that, but how that would affect y'all's decision as well, the different type of loans.
It's stressful. It's I'm lucky that my parents helped me through all that paperwork, but even that alone, it's you look at it and you're like, what's a FAFSA? What's this? And they're asking you every question under the sun, and you just don't really have a lot of guidance. And so again, I'm fortunate that my parents were able to help me through that, but my school didn't. And that's something that you get given these loan packages. You need an advisor. You need help. And I feel to date there's not that much that's coming to you. I think of course there might be opportunities that you can go out and find, but as a high school student you have so much going on and you're trying to navigate it quickly, and that is definitely stressful.
So you just hit on a point of not getting the advice or maybe the support you needed at high school. Talk a little bit about what your high school has provided to you, whether it's the financial, whether it's finding whether they did they talk about the various pathways that are available? Was it all 4-year? Was it all college prep? Talk a little bit about that and what you saw through your high school years.
For me, my high school years, I kind of experienced the career path that I'm wanting to pursue now. So I feel Klein Cain was a new institute in Spring, Texas. So when I went, I was a part of the first generation to ever touch this school. So they made sure that they gave us all the resources that we needed to be successful in whatever way we saw that. In automotive, in fashion, in cosmetology, it was a lot of resources that were provided. But for making that decision, I'm sorry, can you say the question again? Right.
Just what kind of support and information you received throughout your high school career. One of the statistics was that that high schoolers, 80% of high schoolers think about what they're going to do after high school every week, and half think about it every single day. So this is a decision that continues to weigh on them. So I was just curious what kind of resources or assistance or exploration did your schools provide?
So I also took AVID, which is a career college
Yeah.
readiness class. So I had that to also help me kind of get me familiar with how to just be organized, be planned, be ready for everything. So yeah, AVID helped me a lot.
Yeah.
I think for me it was a little bit different. I was talking about this before with some of the high school students, and you know, I went to a private school, I went to a Catholic high school, and we didn't have as many resources. You know, there weren't these like college readiness classes, there weren't, you know, all of these different resources. Of course you had an advisor, and I think with the advisor it was kind of what you put in, you got out. So like you had to meet with the advisor, but it's not like, you know, unless you really came with them with, I know what I want to do, and they could help you specifically. If not, they were giving you general information, probably, you know, passing you on to the post-secondary opportunities that they were affiliated with. And so they're like, oh, go to our sister college, or, you know, there's on-site interviews for like the local colleges. And it was less about like tailored to what you want to do, and more like how can we just like funnel you to keep, you know, keep your education going, whatever that may mean, aside from like really trying to have a conversation like, what do you want to do, what's best for you, what makes sense on the next, like as the next step for you as a person.
For me, we weren't given like much support. We were given simply just like the application itself, just like how to apply, FAFSA and all that, the requirements to graduate, and I mean, nothing about college itself, just how to potentially get in.
Yeah, I think honestly mine was very similar. I know I was talking to you three earlier, and you guys were talking about having like college to career like counselors in high school, and I'm like, dang, I did not have that for sure. My counselor forgot to submit my application to Springfield College, so yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think for me, and JJ, you probably share a very similar sentiment. Maybe you guys do as well. Like my parents wanted to help, and I appreciate them wanting to try to help, but some of the things that they say, it just doesn't make sense, right? And you also don't want to be disrespectful to your parents, but you appreciate them wanting to help. But they're like, Justin, why don't you apply here? Why don't you apply there? And it's like, that's not how this works. You can't just apply to places. You have to make sure that you're prepping for things. And so the question I wanted to share with you guys is, when it comes to the information that you're finding out about college, where are you coming across that stuff? Is it social media? Is it TV? Is it websites? Is it blogs? Or are you not like, and for Alessandra and Tania, I want you to think back to when you were in high school. Where did you find out information about college, if anything, besides school? JJ?
Yeah, it was, for me, as of right now, it's because, you know, social media is a bigger thing now. So social media is helping me a little bit. I learned a lot from the people that went through the process, like you and my brother, and a little bit from my parents, but mainly just from like social media, my friends, and like, I don't know, various like websites. And
from
whatnot.
social media and websites, are you finding it from like college social media pages, or is it like random creators that you follow that are now in college? Yeah, at Declassified College, you know? But no, I know, you don't follow me, it's okay. But no, yeah, what type of like, what pages are you finding that stuff on?
Definitely not the like college pages at all. It's more just like other content creators trying to inform the general public about, you know, the process, what you would go through, what the experience is like.
Alessandra?
I think for me, I know I am young, but I was before TikTok in high school. And for us, the school would give you some information, more general. But for me, I think I learned a lot from like my siblings, my peers, my family, my friends, the ones before me that went to college. You know, I remember going to like shadow and visit some of my friends at the colleges that they were at and learning things that way. So it was more just kind of like word of mouth, and just like some things from my school and the resources they gave us, but not that much.
So for myself, I feel like I learned more of just putting myself through the experience. Like I said, like I knew I always wanted a post-secondary education. I just never knew what that exactly like looked like for me. And my parents aren't really parents that are pressuring me to go to school or telling me this is my only route. They've always told me just to be myself and just to be you wherever you go and just follow that path. So this is just, I feel like I solely put myself here in a way.
For sure. And I think we have a question, right? And then we can go to you. No, let's have him. I know he's been waiting for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm Rico. I work with the National Resource Center for the First Year Experience and Students in Transition. We're housed at the University of South Carolina, but I've taught first year students for like the last 15 years, but this past year has been a really good cross-section. I'm sure like some others going with it because my son just turned 18. He graduates high school this year. And so a lot of the things that you guys are sharing, I've seen that at home, but I've also in the workplace seen what deal with it. So it's kind of a two-pronged question of, because you've talked about the support you've had through conversations with friends and family, but like, how are you best supported in what you're trying to do, to have the freedom to make those choices and to learn those lessons and growing that? So how are you best supported by your family structure? And then how are you best supported by the faculty and staff and instructors that you're experiencing in school? Like what's working and what's not working for you?
I think that's such a great conversation. I thank you for asking that because I feel like the fact that you're even asking that is like the first step of the conversation, where I think is just like being able to have an environment that allows you to just speak. Like I think a lot of parents, most parents are very eager and like they want to help you through it, but they tend to talk at you and not listen to you. And I think having an environment where people ask you, you know, what can I do for you? Like, how can I be of help for you? And even just like being someone to listen to, like just being there to listen to them and creating a safe space where you feel like you can share what your aspirations are, what you're thinking, your struggles, you know, the positives and negatives, what you're going through, and being able to kind of work through it together, and just, you know, being able to say it all without being told like, well, you should do this and you should do that. Like, I think having that environment, like where you can just, you know, really throw things around and go through it with someone who just supports you to it. And as far as on the second side, like how schools I think could help, I think it's also a similar way, but I think the difference between your family and school, I mean, obviously it depends on the student, but I think that for me at home, I would like to just be able to share my thoughts, whereas at school, I think asking the right questions, you know, getting students to think and really make them think like, what do you want to do? What do you see yourself? You know, asking about debt, how do you want to pay for college? Like, you know, what do you want to do post-college? Like, did you think about all of the opportunities? Are you doing it because it makes sense for you or because your friends are doing it? Like asking those hard questions in a not so difficult manner, but really giving them provoking questions to start thinking about it in a serious manner. So that's at least for me, like what I would want out of my support networks, both at home and at school.
Mm-hmm. So at school, I would say more of kind of like you said, instead of telling them to like go like the traditional route or a route that was already like taken by the person they're like that's advising them, because I've been in the situation myself, like the path that I'm taking, I want to pursue an associate's, but when I speak to my advisor, they're always encouraging me to take courses to be able to transfer or to take courses to still pursue a bachelor's. Just because I'm going down the route of an associate's doesn't mean that's the end goal for me, and that doesn't mean that I can only pursue an associate's. For at home, like I said, I'm just on this path alone by myself, so it's not really any pressure there. And at school, I feel I have the platform to just be myself, interact with people, network, learn from others, and kind of just keep building from there. So.
Yeah, I don't know. For me at school, we had a meeting about, like I said, just how to apply, and that's it, nothing else. So I think they said at the beginning of the year we were supposed to meet with our college counselor or whatever, our advisor, every month, but which, I mean, has never happened. And I think they should, I mean, A, follow up on that, and then B, they should ask us questions to think about what our next step is, because we're not thinking about what our next step is. We are thinking about the step they want us to take. It's not like, you know, what do you want to shape your life into? You know, what is your life looking like? Do you want to work an office job? Do you want to, you know, be financially free and whatnot? They don't give us, you know, the bigger perspective. It's just college, right? What college are you going to? What career path? And they say that as if we know, or we have to know exactly what we want to do. And I mean, at home, it's just, I think it's more like at home it should be more open to free thought. It's just like bouncing ideas back and forth. And then at school, it's them asking us thought-provoking questions, meaningful questions that will get us on the track of actually thinking what happens during the college process, after the college process, and what life looks like after college.
Yeah, I think from the school perspective, just building that culture to be able to, A, ask students the right questions, but also the students being able to ask you guys the right question. Because I feel like a lot of times from a school perspective, it's like, okay, we talked about debt today, great. Did you guys get it? They probably didn't get it, but they'll say yes because they don't want to say anything. And then, okay, we can check that box off. Okay, we talked about applying today. Cool, you guys got applying? Cool, okay. But they probably didn't understand it at all. And you haven't built up that culture to be able for them to say that they didn't understand it, right? We've all been in that math class where that teacher's just like, yeah, you guys understand that algebraic question or whatever, and you just say yes because you just want the class to end. You don't want to build that culture within your school or whatever it may be. So I know you had a question, and then we'll go to you after. I can start it off if you guys don't have thoughts.
I'd say the more individual one-on-one like time, and I like that you brought about the fact that a lot of the focus towards these questions are towards second semester juniors and seniors. I think that, you know, starting the conversation earlier in a non-stressful manner would be great because it gets you to start thinking about it slowly and subtly. And it doesn't mean that you need to know what you want to do for college or beyond, but it just takes off that pressure of now you have 6 months, a year to make all of these important decisions. So I think it would be great to start it earlier. And I think also, you know, finding time, whether it's one-on-one or in small group sessions, I think that people get more out of being able to have their voice heard as opposed to just being spoken to in a larger group setting.
Well, and studies actually show that starting the process in middle school it would be best, right? Just kind of starting some type of exploration. And so then, yeah, you don't have, 18 months until, okay, you have to make this decision, right? So what would you think about that?
I think that was amazing. That gave me more than enough time to question, to think, to learn a lot. I actually had the opportunity to visit a lot of universities through programs such as college readiness classes.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that would be nice to be able to do that because for my school we started in our second quarter of our sophomore year, and like I said, it was nothing except getting us to be able to apply to colleges. They should have, I believe they should have educated us more on like the overall experience of college. We weren't given like the programs, like anything after the application process whatsoever. Everything is just shrouded in mystery, and it's hard to get started if you're not asked the right questions. Because I mean, how can you think about something you don't know of? You have to get someone to connect the dots for you.
I think the big issue for a lot of high school students, or high school system, I guess, in general, is, right, a lot of high schools are graded on how many students can they get to college, right? And that is kind of the end goal for them, versus if you ask a high school student, like, where do you want your life to be, and does college play a role in that path? I think you will start to get a little bit better questions from the high school student to ask their guidance counselor or whatever it may be. So I think that might be a good place to start as well.
Yeah, I used to teach high school, and at my school was one where it was 100% college admission, but only 22% of students would graduate, right? So you could see there's like a massive problem where the other 78% of students are probably worse off than if they never went. And kind of to that end, I guess my question for you students, both for you and maybe your peers that you think of, does data play a part of the decision-making process? Like when you're looking at maybe different schools, different majors, considering a trade school, et cetera, do people dig into like the Department of Ed's college scorecard and so forth that shows you like, okay, you know, this percentage of students graduate, or in this program, this percentage of students graduate, and the likelihood of earning more than a person who doesn't have a degree, and like how far down do people drill into data, or is it mostly like when I was coming out of high school, the only data you had was like US News and World Report rankings, and that was it. It was like top 100 school or it wasn't. Do people in your kind of peer groups like pay attention to that kind of data at all?
Me personally, I didn't really pay attention to the data. I paid more attention to the curriculum and what was offered.
I would look at it differently. So I feel like me, and looking back at my peers, I think it was, I mean, yes, the question about the actual school came up, but I think it was more in like looking into the data of the career path that you're choosing on. You know, how much financial return can I get by studying to be a doctor, to go into business, to get an accounting degree? You know, that was, I think, more of the data that my friends and I were looking at. It's like, okay, if I choose to study this, like, what am I going to be able to gross as an income afterwards? And so those were the kind of data points. Of course, there were the pocket of kids that were like brainiacs and just looking like, I want to go to an Ivy League school and that's my goal, and looking at the ranking of the school itself. But I would say the data that most commonly was looked at is like, how am I making the most money out of school, and what can I study to get me the most money out of school?
I'm sorry, can I add on really quickly? Something that really, like, according, like you said, with data, like SAT and SAT scores is something that personally, like, scared me a lot. Because I was like, I get testing anxiety. So whenever I'm taking a test, I instantly just kind of, like, check out a little bit. So stuff like that made me feel like possibly I wasn't smart enough to be in rooms with people who are going to Ivy League institutes or larger four-year institutions. So, yeah.
Absolutely, there's so much pressure. That's another data point that you'll go to schools and they're like, well, don't even look at us unless you have like this score. And so, but I think from what I've spoken to some of the younger students that are going through the process now with a lot of test optional schools, hopefully that's been a little bit alleviated.
JJ?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my friends experienced the same thing, but I never really looked at the data, the statistics about like graduation rate and whatnot. It's, I mean, like she said, mainly just how can you make the most money and what is the least painful path. Like, I mean, becoming a doctor is, I mean, good luck. And I mean, well, it's different for everybody, right? Like me personally, I really don't like school. So painful would be the most time I'd spend in school, which is the doctor route. I refuse to do that. It's just way too much school. And, you know, but like I said, painful is different for everybody. Some people just don't like certain things. So it's like they don't mind school as long as they can avoid a certain part of it.
For sure. I know we're at time. Is it cool if we get one or two more questions, Christopher? One question? Okay.
Yay.
Louisa, you got the last question.
Cool. Okay. Hi, I'm Louisa, and I run the social media for our community college. And knowing that y'all listen to content creators more, for, I guess, to get persuaded to go to a college, my question is, what does college social media, like what should we put out there to encourage you? I know that you're listening to the content creators and you are going to trust them more than my page. So what do I need to put on my page to make us look cool to you?
At least from my perspective, putting a whole bunch of words on a post is not really going to make me want to go there. So if you have maybe more videos or stuff with people talking and interacting, I think that'll get me more interested in the school, because I don't want to just scroll through and just read a whole bunch of paragraphs, for sure.
For me, it's, I mean, like you said, like a wall of text is bad, but it's not necessarily about looking cool. It's about seeming credible. It's like how you form your words. Words are everything, right? you can make something that's not that great sound much better if you form your words around it better. And visuals are very big, you know, like, I mean, campuses or opportunities and whatnot.
I think getting the student perspective, at least from me in my opinion. So right now I'm in culinary school, so out of college, and so I share day in the life content of what it's like to be a culinary student in New York City, and I've had students come to me and say, this is helpful. So, and my school has taken my posts and with my permission, reposted it on their page. And so I think the idea of highlighting the student perspective and what that realistically looks like for them would be a great angle to take, because people want to be able to align themselves and say, hey, I could see myself doing that, or, oh, that's what it looks like. And I think from the people that I've spoken to and from me sharing that sort of content, I received the feedback of like, well, I wasn't really sure what it would look like, and after seeing your videos, I feel confident to do it, and I now know what I'm getting into, and I'm glad and happy to take that next step. So I think just highlighting student perspectives and getting them at the forefront of the content would be really cool, and whether that's in the form of like a student takeover or just like having them do like some sort of day in the life content, I think that really aligns with students when they're trying to picture themselves aligning well with this college or university that they're looking to attend or program.
Yeah, I think those answers were amazing. I know we're at time, so can we get a big round of applause for all of these lovely students?